Thank you for clicking on this video. We are talking NFL Week 4 game previews. There's a lot to talk about this week. Injuries everywhere, some really interesting line movements. We're seeing a lot of market manipulation and setups with early week line movement just to see buybacks later in the week. A lot of two-way action around the key numbers, some sharp disagreement. I'll be doing a little bit more heavy on the market analysis this week in an attempt to explain everything. Now keep in mind, when I'm talking about these line moves or which side or total got sharp money, I'm talking about it after the fact. It does us no good identifying the sharp side after the line moves because it's not like that side is still the sharp side after the line moves. My point in all this is sports betting is extremely time sensitive, and that's why I focus so much on teaching members of the Discord on how to analyze the market, because it's not like I can record a video, edit it, and upload it in real time and point this stuff out. The best I can do is go over it after the fact and hope you guys can identify this stuff going forward. Because remember, if I point out that the sharps bet Washington +6 and the line's now 3.5, that doesn't mean Washington at +3.5 is still sharp, or betting Washington +6 at -180 or on alt line or buying points is sharp either. These are completely different bets, but if you learn how to analyze the market, you'll be able to see these line moves happening in real time and get the best of the number. That's why a lot of times you'll see in these videos, I've made bets earlier in the week, but the line is no longer available. It's pretty much impossible to share sharp, actionable information in real time via like content or doing videos, because we're talking about moves that are happening in seconds, not minutes or hours. That's how quick this stuff happens here. Now, other than that, we are at the point in the season where we really have to be keyed in on team injury reports. Team writers on Twitter are usually first to post practice reports of who participated, and then you have all these sites that list official injury status, but by the time names reach the official injury status, the lines have already adjusted for those key players. So if you're trying to take advantage of injury news when betting, you really have to put in the work. Every team has not just team reporters, but then their own independent websites or blogs. They post about team info and status of players at practice. I'll do my best to go over the key injuries for each team. A lot to talk about this week. Let's not waste any more time. Now remember, if you want access to every game breakdown, the full version of this video with all games are posted inside the Discord community for pro members. The invite link to join is in the description of this video or in my bio, depending on where you're watching this video. This video here is just going over a few of the games, and starting with Saints, Falcons, Sunday, 1 p.m. Both the Saints and Falcons are coming off games where they not only lost, but they got really banged up in their losses. Both teams have several injuries, and this has had a pretty big impact on the total in this game. Check this total out here. It opened 46.5 at some books, which got pounded down on Monday. And in the intro, I talked about how you need to be careful of early week line moves because a lot of times there's setups or sharps just manipulating the market to get a better number, and they come back on the other side and pound it. But this isn't one of those situations, and you can tell because this total just kept getting bet down with no resistance. It was just a free-for-all from the opener of 46.5 and dropped down to 42, which is probably the bottom point now. Injuries along with sharp bets have helped this total drop, but the under is definitely sharp here, especially under those key total numbers of 45 and 44. But remember, that doesn't mean the under is still sharp at this current number of 42. In fact, I'd argue that the over probably has value now after the adjustment down. Saints look like they're going to be forced to start two new linemen. Their starting center, Eric McCoy, is done for the year. He had surgery already. They really don't have an immediate replacement for him either. Guard Cesar Ruiz hasn't practiced. On Tuesday, the Saints held private workouts for 5 offensive linemen looking to elevate some players to their roster. Not a good sign if you're looking to sign offensive linemen on a Tuesday. Injuries do not stop there. Alvin Kamara popped up on the injury report. Demario Davis, linebacker, he's on the injury report. So Saints really banged up, and I think the Eagles defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, gave the blueprint on how to slow this Saints offense down, and it's load up the defensive front using 5 and 6 down linemen, and this has caused a lot of problems for the Saints and their blocking scheme, but most of all, it's putting people in Derek Carr's face, and his numbers when faced with pressure just dropped right off a cliff. The final score last week, 15-12 in the Eagles-Saints game, but the Eagles dominated that game. Falcons' offensive line got manhandled by the Chiefs' defensive line, and literally, too. The Falcons now have some injuries up front, but I do like the Falcons here. I think they might copy what the Eagles did, adding those extra guys up front on the defensive line, and we're going to see this Saints team come back down to earth after their hot start. Let's move on to the Steelers-Colts. Looking at this line movement is pretty interesting here. On one hand, I was a little surprised to see the Steelers take money earlier in the week, moving the number up to 2.5 because I make this game a pick. I have Steelers 1 point better on a neutral, and then the Colts getting 1 point for home field advantage. I'm at a pick 'em basically. This morning, we started to see Colts money coming in, and a lot of the plus 2.5s turned into plus 2s. When you think about the Steelers being 3-0 and all the praise of how well the Steelers defense has been, Justin Fields is getting a lot of support. The fact this number didn't touch 3 is very telling because I think with all the Steelers betting support, and I think Sharp's trying to dummy this line up to 3 and it never got there, makes me like the Colts here, especially in a teaser, getting them up and over the key number of 7 at home. This is a really good Colts offense, believe it or not. Second in yards per play, but costly red zone turnovers and mistakes have made this offense look worse than it really is. They have, if they play a game where they don't lose a turnover battle, they're going to look much better. This is going to be a big step up for the Steelers' defense compared to offensives they've faced. Steelers haven't faced a mobile running quarterback yet, and Fields hasn't played from behind or really been tested at all. Not that the Colts' defense is going to test them or anything, but it's much different than playing with a lead, no pressure to move the ball. A clean game from AR-15, and the Colts will win this one. Watch. Steelers are 3-0. I have a big future bet on them under 8.5 wins, so I have to avoid 6 more wins in the next 14 games. Not exactly ideal, but I still think this Steelers team is fraudulent. Their defense is overrated, in my opinion. When you look at who they played, they got Kirk Cousins in his first game back off major injury. Then they got QB, the rookie QB there, kid Bo Nix. Who else? And last week, a banged-up Justin Herbert on one leg, less than 100%. I like the Colts here as a small home dog, but I have the Colts in several different teasers. A lot of good teaser options this week that fit the optimal teaser strategy, which I have a checklist of what games fit the optimized Wong teaser strategy listed inside the Discord for anyone who wants to check that out. The over in this game also got some sharp money on the opener at 38.5, which moved it up to 40. Moving along, next game up, we got Jags-Texans. This line opened 4, and it was all Houston betting love. Usually, when a team gets adjusted up so far past the opener or the look-ahead line, I'm looking to bet on the other team, but this isn't one of those spots. Once Houston got up to 7, that's when we saw Jags money come crashing in, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise. We see it every game, every week. A team gets bet, the line adjusts up until it hits a point where it's gone too far, and then we see buyback on the opposite team. But for some reason, I just thought if there was ever a time when we don't see the buyback come, it'd be this game because of how the Jags looked on prime time. Jags game plan versus Buffalo just made 0 sense on both sides of the ball. On defense, watching the game back, it was mind-boggling. Jags play a ton of man coverage, but they were like dropping their linebackers into some sort of soft zone to basically allow runs and all the passes underneath. They just allowed and conceded everything short like they were playing prevent with a 3-score lead. Then on offense, they were attacking the Bills outside on the edge where they're the strongest rather than up the middle where they're weaker. Just awful game plan. And I'll never be one of those guys that claim to be smarter than an NFL head coach, but I have no clue what that was all about. And reports came out about how Jags owner Shahid Khan was as mad as he's ever been with a team after a loss. Doug Peterson's job security is now in question, and I just don't like the Jags here. This Jags defense has a ton of injuries. Keep in mind, their best cover corner, Tyson Campbell, already on IR along with safety Wingard, but now starters Darnell Savage, Jarrion Jones are banged up, and that's just in the secondary. Middle linebacker Olakun is likely to miss. He's a legit top 5 linebacker in the league. I mean, there's injuries everywhere. Offensively, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram on offense, both questionable. Left and right offensive tackles. I mean, they're just riddled with injuries. At the current line of 6.5, it's still 2.5 points above where it opened at 4. So it might be an inflated line for a divisional game, but I have a feeling we start to see Houston get to rolling but I don't think I'll be involved in this game. Houston has some issues of their own. Running back Joe Mixon will miss. Running back Damian Pierce looks like he's a true questionable 50-50. Tank Dell looks like he's going to miss. Nico Collins is now questionable. If both Tank Dell and Nico Collins miss this game and Houston's without running backs, I don't know what this offense will look like. Jags do play a league-high rate of cover one man coverage. C.J. Stroud isn't bad versus man. He's just much better versus zone coverage. But here's the thing. Jags have so many injuries in the secondary, I'm not sure they can even play man, but they've shown they can't or won't change out of man. So I think the Jags will play man even without the personnel to do it, which makes me think C.J. Stroud can take advantage of this. But these skill position injuries, who's he even going to throw the ball to? All right, moving on. Let's go Vikings-Packers here. Big question here. Will Jordan Love play? I think he starts, or at least it's more likely he plays than misses the game, in my opinion. I think if he starts, I like Green Bay at less than a field goal, but if Love plays, this will close above 3 for sure. I don't love indoor dome teams playing outdoors on grass, even though I bet on one this week. I'll explain later. I did bet Green Bay small at -2.5, but can't fully bet Green Bay without knowing who's at QB, and not sure we get confirmation on Love's status on Friday or not. There's that whole gamesmanship aspect of this too. LaFleur wants to keep the other team guessing, but the reason I like Green Bay has more to do with the Packers' defense, especially when they don't have to face a mobile quarterback. They looked much different last week with their pressure getting home versus Tennessee, but the same pressure rate didn't turn into sacks versus the Eagles and Colts because the pressure had to worry about contain and blocking up the running lanes versus mobile quarterbacks. Now versus Sam Darnold, where he's no threat to him running, I think we see a big performance from this Green Bay defense. Also, speaking of Sam Darnold, this guy's getting extremely lucky through 3 weeks. He's putting the ball in some really bad spots, but just getting bailed out. Through 3 games with less than 80 pass attempts, he has an 11% bad ball rate, but only 2 INTs. I think the Packers will take advantage of any errors from Darnold. Packers actually lead the NFL in turnover differential at +7. Now, I also like the under here. I do want to bet it under 44, but haven't yet. I might bet it after recording this, and if you see it added in on a bet slip into the video, then you know I bet it. Really high on both defenses. The Vikings defense is legit. Brian Flores, Vikings defensive coordinator, has this defense confusing everyone.